to Social and Economic Research Initiatives, Malaysian Women in the Workforce Research Forum. My name is Farah, and it is my pleasure to be your MC for today. Thank you for taking the time to join us. This forum, supported by Microsoft Malaysia and held on 7th of March 2024, is organized in close celebration of International Women's Day tomorrow. On behalf of SERI, I would like to formally wish everyone here an early Happy International Women's Day. Let us take a moment to appreciate the women in our lives who inspire us with their strength, resilience, and determination, and to recommit ourselves to the ongoing fight for gender equality. It is a day to recognize the progress we have made towards gender equity, but to also acknowledge the work that still lies ahead. Organized for this purpose, our forum today brings together women of diverse backgrounds and expertise to spotlight their experiences and insights addressing the pressing issue of gender inequality in Malaysia. We focus in particular on gender equality in the workforce, whereby as of 2023, 60% of all university graduates were female, yet nearly half of all women in the country remain left out of the workforce. This statistic highlights the urgent need to tackle inequality, as Malaysian women continue to face significant challenges in employment, including wage disparities, underrepresentation in leadership roles, and difficulties in achieving work-family balance. These obstacles don't just hinder empowerment and limit access to financial stability and freedom for women, but they also impact our economic well-being, productivity, and Malaysia's overall development. Our research being discussed today aims to address these challenges by identifying the root causes of gender inequality in employment and proposing practical solutions to promote equity and break down barriers to women's contribution in the workforce. Today, we come together at this forum to take part in dialogue enforced by research and aimed at driving meaningful change through practical solutions and policy recommendations, moving towards a more inclusive and gender-equal Malaysian workforce. To formally kick off our event, it's my pleasure to invite Chief Operating Officer at Microsoft Malaysia, Ms. Aziza Ali, to deliver her opening address. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Aziza to the stage.
Obviously, I'm vertically challenged. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon. Firstly, I wanted to actually thank every one of you for being here today, in joining me to congratulate Social and Economic Research Initiative, or better known as SERI, on the launch of the Malaysian Women in Workforce today. This is certainly a timely effort for both of the organization to come together ahead of the International Women's Day tomorrow. So I also wanted to take this opportunity to wish every woman and man who actually have a counterparts of women, Happy Women's Day. At Microsoft, we are committed in diversity and inclusion as one of our core corporate values. And this is actually driven in alignment with our mission to be able to empower every person and every organization in the planet to achieve more. I'm also pleased to share that just this morning, actually, I just came back from the launch of our initiative called Microsoft Ready for AI and Security Initiative. And with this initiative, we are actually hoping to be able to certify professionals in the cybersecurity area as well as artificial intelligence. And most exciting is this particular effort, we hope that to be able to include 60% of our target to be certifying women and making sure that women are actually interested in the area of security and cybersecurity. So this is just one of the examples of the initiative and programs that we actually have at Microsoft. And our commitment extends to not just about the program, but also in terms of the transparency in reporting of the diversity and inclusion And also at Microsoft itself, we do have multiple programs, including our employee resource group. And externally with our partners and organizational partners, we also have programs such as Code Without Barriers, which hope to be able to reduce the gender gap on artificial intelligence, cloud, as well as digital technology sectors. So diversity and inclusions are actually essentials for innovation, and having an inclusive and diverse working workforce will actually cultivate an innovative environment for those that actually adopt this principle. It is therefore not just benefiting the society, but also at the end of the day will benefit the economy. And without women to participate in the economy, we will certainly not become a diverse and robust Malaysian economy as Malaysia. So efforts such as what SERI is doing today, the study will certainly help us to look at how do we understand from the data-driven perspective where the gaps are for us to be able to have a fact-based policy formulation and intervention, and aligning all the stakeholders to be able to address this challenge. So I look forward to the insight of the study that will be presented later. And hopefully all the stakeholders in the room will come together with joining us, government, public sector, private sectors, NGOs, to be able to provide and broaden the perspective for women in the workplace. So I invite all of you to join me once again to congratulate SERI for the initiative. And hopefully, as part of the presentation, we will have an engaging dialogue as well, so that everyone can actually benefit from these sessions. So with that, I wanted to welcome you once again to the humble Microsoft office. And hopefully we will be able to be a good host for all of you. Thank you and Assalamualaikum.
Thank you very much, Ms. Aziza. I would like to now welcome Dr. Helmi Hajamaiden, Chief Operating Officer of SERI, to deliver his opening remarks. Welcome, Dr. Helmi.
Right, Assalamualaikum, good afternoon. It's a little bit like school where people like Anwar and all are hiding at the back and, you know, the front seats are empty, but, you know, I see you, man. Thank you for coming. Thank you for that very warm, welcoming speech. I will not try to mansplain too much about why this topic is important. I think there are far more qualified individuals in the room who can tell us about the importance of empowering women. My bias is that I've got 2 girls, and as far as I'm concerned, I want them to have the exact same opportunity that I've had, with much less restrictions as to what they can achieve. And I think that's something we probably all share, not just for our family members, but for Malaysia as a whole. And one key thing that SERI has been driving from the very beginning is the approach that any policy has to be driven not just by emotive aspects or political aspects, but it has to be driven by policy that is focused very much on data. So what we have on the ground, the reality on the ground, what can be done, and taking things beyond just the rhetoric, but actually getting things done on the ground. And when we go to the policymakers, being able to implement the changes that we want to actually implement. And that's the gist of what SERI is and what we are hoping to achieve. We've been very fortunate that over the years, it's only been 3 years, but it seems like 3 decades, especially with the Malaysian political scene. But with the 3 years that we've had on so far, we've been fortunate to find lots of partners, such as Microsoft, who share same values when it comes to wanting to empower those who are disenfranchised, wanting to address issues of inequality, both in terms of policy, but also in terms of tools that can be used to intervene in these changes. And for this particular report, I was very fortunate because I think I was having coffee with Datuk Kali, and I said, hey, we want to do this research, can you help us? And he said, yes, I've got a foundation. So thank you very much for helping out, because from that generosity, we've been able to come up with a study which I'm sure you'll find to be very insightful and very useful. Now, in this not so humble place, once, it's a very, very To me, it's an extremely wonderful place to have us as guests, and I thank you once again for being able to support us, not just for today, but for the past few years, and of course, hopefully, through a much more fruitful partnership in the future as well. So we've got the other thing to bear in mind is that it's not just about us being here today, it's also about us wanting to once again go out and implement these changes. So later on, hopefully we'll have a good dialogue, we'll have some insights, but my promise today is that it will not stop here. The idea is to take things that are very, very concrete and then move forward with discussions with agencies such as Talent Corp, the appropriate ministries, and then get things changed so that ultimately we'll all be having a far better future for ourselves and for our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Helmi, for your speech. Next, our guest of honor, Ms. Nurliza Anwar, who unfortunately could not be with us today again, will be delivering her pre-recorded virtual keynote speech.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Salam Malaysia Madani. Thank you kindly to everyone from our esteemed panelists, sponsors, i.e. Microsoft, guests, dignitaries and the sterling team at SERI who are responsible for the Malaysian Women in the Workforce report, published in conjunction with the International Women's Day. Terima kasih daun keladi. I speak to you with a heavy heart and a heavier dose of influenza A, which has kept me glued to my home in conformance with the country's healthcare regulations on infectious diseases. Ladies and gentlemen, teman-teman seperjuangan, we are reminded by Arundhati Roy as she shreds the assumption of what it means to be a writer. One is not involved by virtue of being a writer or activist. One is involved because one is a human being. I was once an opposition lawmaker, lucky enough to traverse the political divide and eventually become a backbencher member of parliament. Navigating the endless possibilities of ideas with the actual limits of bureaucracy hasn't been easy. But clarity is achieved when through it all I try my very best to utilize evidence and impact-based policy making as a guide. I could not have done it without the support of the SERI team, especially Rashad, Nadia, Helmi and Yolanda, and so many I haven't had a chance to name here, to realize the plans as we cooked up within the four walls of available office space, ideas and ruminations. It was with this grouping that we discussed the makings of the multidimensional poverty index study led by Professor Fatimah Kari. The team of which witnessed us winning her over to conduct such a study in the middle of the COVID pandemic in 2021. Universities, totaling 589,879 people, yet still not just underrepresented in the workforce, but earning less than their male counterparts. And what's worse, almost half leaving the workforce altogether post-marriage. We each need to do our part to figure out remedies. Selamat berjuang dan selamat Hari Wanita. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you to Ms. Nurul Izzah for her wonderful speech. I would like to now move on to the introduction of our research paper and presentation of key findings. Doing so will be Ms. Sakina Alzian, Research Analyst at SERI Malaysia. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Sakina onto the stage. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and happy International Women's Day. Thank you for joining us today as we delve into an important conversation surrounding the role of Malaysian women in the workforce. My name is Nur Sakina Alzian. I am a research analyst here at SERI, and I'm honored to be representing our organization. Together, today, we will explore and discuss findings from our recently published paper titled Malaysian Women in Workforce, Charting a Path to Inclusive Employment. I also like to note that the slides will be available after the event. Now, over the course of 7 months, SERI has conducted a research project aimed at understanding Malaysian women's experiences in pursuing employment, from university to the labor market. We collected answers from over 400 Malaysian women who hold a university degree and are actively participating in the labor market. We paid particular attention to the stresses and expectations that are unique to women, encompassing their choice of university programs, university to work transition, career delays, job mismatches, and the types of pressure that women feel when they enter the labor market in order to holistically understand Malaysian women's employment experience. Now, this presentation will be divided into the 3 main themes of the paper, which is, the first one is the interplay of family, culture, and job choices among Malaysian women. Secondly, the persistent trends of horizontal gender segregation in Malaysia's educational and employment landscape. And the third one is the dual influence of job mismatch and ethnicity on labor market transition. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll begin with the first finding of our research paper. Our analysis unveiled that more than half of our respondents has cited family as their main source of support when it comes to pursuing their career goals. But if you look at the next graph, I hope you can see it clearly, the 3 main cultural pressures that women face, the top 2 involve family, which are the first one, the pressure to choose a job based on family or community expectation. The second one is the pressure to prioritize family over career. And the third one is the pressure to conform to traditional roles, to gender roles. And then, as we probe deeper into the experiences of those who reported on family as their primary support system, a pattern emerged. When we asked them about why did they experience career delay, quite a few mentioned that family responsibilities were the reason for their career setbacks. For example, a 25-year-old woman from Sarawak said that she had to take care of her family so other family members can do their own job first. And the second woman, 23-year-old woman from Pahang, said she had to take care of her parents. The parents need her to be around them, which causes her career delay. And then we took this analysis further and looked at it across ethnic groups. We noticed variations in the nature of the kind of cultural pressures that different women from different ethnic groups experience, although a bit similar in nature. For example, Malay, Chinese, and non-Malay Bumiputra respondents emphasized the pressure of the need to align their job choices according to family or community expectations. However, Indian respondents cited that the pressure they feel is the pressure to prioritize their family over their career. So this underscores that women from all ethnic groups in Malaysia encounter some kind of familial pressure in their employment pursuit. Now this leads us to the discussion of work-life balance. In our survey, we discovered that achieving work-life balance has become an important consideration for women when they seek employment, surpassing even the need for the salary to match their degree background and also the job opportunities that are available in the labor market. Notably, what was interesting is that even young women aged 18 to 25 who are more likely to be single, there is a strong desire for work-life balance as well in their career. Now, this finding signals a significant shift in how individuals, regardless of their age or relationship status, perceive and prioritize work-life balance in their career choices. What this shows is that while Malaysian women deeply value their family support in their career path, these familial ties can also pose challenges to them, causing such as career delays. Now, to address this dynamic, a paradigm shift in policy lens is so important. The current policies may not comprehensively cater to the needs of women striving to balance family and work. Therefore, we at SERI here have proposed a change in policy lens that involve mainstreaming family in considerations into policies, recognizing and supporting the holistic needs of everyone, because we can expect that all workers in Malaysia will one day have care obligations, regardless of them being mothers or fathers. And this shift could lead to the development of more inclusive policies, such as improved paternal laws and flexible working arrangements. Ladies and gentlemen, moving on to the second theme of our report, which is the persistent trends of horizontal gender segregation in education and employment sector. For context, horizontal gender segregation refers to the unequal distribution of men and women across job roles, positions, fields of work in an organization or an industry. According to our survey, we found that the top 3 uni courses that Malaysian women chose are business and sales, followed by sciences and social sciences. Now, sciences here we put an asterisk because there are STEM subjects that exclude engineering and computer science. And then, when we looked at women's first jobs, the top 3 industries are all non-STEM industries, and they are business and sales, social sciences, and accountancy, which shows that horizontal gender segregation still persists in Malaysia. Now, shifting to a more specific issue in horizontal gender segregation is that our research uncovered a concerning trend among female STEM graduates, which is the leaky pipeline phenomenon. Now, this phenomenon, it describes the consistent loss of women in science and technology from elementary school through tertiary education and into the workforce. Our study identified here a surplus of women working in the business and sales sector, but they don't have a business and sales degree. And when we compare this to the sciences with an asterisk field, there is a deficit of women working in the sector. So we believe that that the female science graduates often transition to non-STEM roles when they enter the job market. Now, it's also crucial to note that this misalignment between academic degrees and job roles in STEM fields is not uniform across all STEM subjects. Our observations reveal that the leaky pipeline phenomenon is more apparent in sciences, but less prevalent in engineering, however, which is quite surprising, since those who studied engineering, they typically did find employment in engineering roles. But nonetheless, despite the favorable standing of female engineering graduates as compared to sciences, more than half of the respondents who we identified as working in the male-dominated sector, which are computer science and engineering, reported that they encounter challenges. Now, several respondents in our survey have shared their experiences. For example, a 24-year-old woman with a bachelor's degree in science have said that it's more challenging for women to get a job as the company prefer to hire men, as they will not be facing issues such as pregnancy, holiday, menstrual pain. And another girl with a bachelor's degree in engineering said that most of the time companies prefer to hire men due to the nature of the work. So what we could see here is that even from the beginning, women are more likely to not choose STEM subjects. And even when they are in the STEM subjects, they are faced with more barriers due to the nature of the field being more male-dominated. Therefore, there has to be policies to rectify the horizontal gender segregation to increase the participation of women in the STEM fields, and gender has to be mainstream across all decision-makings in public and private sector. Now, finally, to the third theme of our report, which is the dual influence of job mismatch and ethnicity on labor market transition. So in addition to inquiring about when respondents secured a job, we also sought insights from them on the factors that contribute to their career delays. And our findings unveil that the primary factors include the lack of job opportunities in the desired fields, lack of necessary skills and qualifications, and the third one is cultural expectations or pressure. The lack of job mismatch, the lack of job opportunities in the desired field actually aligns with our findings of the job mismatch between the degree obtained and the actual job role, which signifies that there is a problem of misalignment with the demand and supply of degree in the education sector and the labor market. And when we compared degree courses and when a female graduate obtained a job, we found that there is a high employment rate among female engineering graduates, with 53.65% of them securing a job quite early, which is within the first 6 months after graduation. In contrast, sciences graduates are less likely to find a job quicker, whereby 55.8% of them found a job in more than 6 months after graduation. And when we compare this to those with a non-STEM background, such as social sciences, non-STEM students are more likely to fare better than sciences, whereby students with a social sciences background, 40.7% of them found a job in under 6 months, as compared to those with a sciences degree finding a job, 31.7% of them finding a job in under 6 months. But however, the job employment timeline is also significantly influenced by ethnicity. For caveat, this finding was not intended when we started our study, but we believe that its relevance emerged as an anticipated byproduct due to the inherent nature of the Malaysian society. Now, across ethnicity, Chinese female graduates makes up the highest portion of graduates who found a job within under 6 months after graduation, whereas Indians shows the highest percentage of those securing a job more than 6 months after graduation. We believe that the prevalence of ethnicity in the labor market signifies that ethnicity continues to dominate in many aspects of Malaysian society, including our examination of Malaysian women in the workforce. Our findings show that on top of gender discrimination and inequality, the dual influence of job mismatch and ethnicity places Malaysian women at a distinct disadvantage, which contribute to worsened systemic barriers and biases. As we reflect on these findings, it becomes evident to address the various layers and challenges that women face, from education to finding employment and in the workforce. That is all for me today. I will pass the floor back to the MC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sakina. We would now like to begin our panel discussion, and I would like to invite our distinguished speakers to join up on the stage. Firstly is Madam Adila Junid, Director of Legal and Government Affairs at Microsoft Malaysia. Please welcome Madam Adila. Next is Madam Haja Mahuran Saudatu Haji Sariki, who is the Vice President, Group Research, Development and Policy for Malaysian Professional Talent Corp Group. I would like to now invite Mr. Rashad Ali, Chief Strategy and Operations Officer at SERI Malaysia, to be our moderator for this panel discussion. Please welcome Mr. Rashad. Finally, Ms. Sakina, please welcome back onto the stage for the commencement of our panel discussion. We kindly ask that you please maintain any questions for our Q&A session that will be following this panel discussion. Thank you.
Like this. Here we go. Good afternoon. Thanks everyone for coming. It's very nice to see so many people here. As you might expect, prior to today, you know, your nerves are a bit frayed. You have no idea what sort of reception you're going to get in terms of people coming out for this event. So I thank each and every one of you for coming and showing your support today for our work. It means a lot to me, means a lot to the organization. Thank you. So this is just going to be a pretty casual, semi-moderated discussion, let's call it that, centered around the themes that were presented by Sakina in the report. Thanks, Sakina, also for a great presentation. and a very nice looking presentation as well. That's thanks to Shafika, our lead designer. So just have a general discussion around the three themes. Interplay of family, culture, and job choices among women. Persistent trends of horizontal gender segregation in Malaysia's educational and employment landscape. And thirdly, labor market transition, dual influence of job mismatch and ethnicity. So I'm going to be very careful with the things that I say for, I guess, obvious reasons. And leave my role as just asking the questions and leaving it up to everybody else here to pick up the questions. And I think to kick things off, so one of the central themes explored in this paper was the significance of family in the lives of the majority of Malaysian women. One thing that I think is particularly interesting to me personally is the way that we tend to think about family and work. We tend to frame family, care work, childcare, whatever you want. We tend to frame it as a crutch as opposed to a boon, you know, despite the fact that it's such a very obvious element in our society, but we still tend to think of it in very, I don't know, negative terms, like we are unable to come to terms with it. So very broadly speaking, I'll just post this to anyone who wants to pick it up. Placing a spotlight on family values and culture. Why do you think these expectations are so significant in women's careers? It seems like a pretty obvious question to ask, but I invite your thoughts. Anybody in first? Adila, maybe you want to, sorry for picking on you.
Hello. Is this, can I be heard? Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. And thank you very much to Siri for having me on this panel. Sorry, Rashad, if I could recap, it's the significance of family.
Family values and culture, yeah.
On women's sort of career prospects and workforce progress, right? So I think, well, there's a very clear need for family to be a strong basic unit in any society, right? Which I think there are various reasons why this falls to the women. Many of it to do with childcare, and then you're right, cultural expectations. But I think if we start recognizing that the family unit is a basic unit of society and not something that will automatically be looked after by the female of the family, then we can start to really kind of address some of the challenges that Sakina has wonderfully identified in the study here.
Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon. I'm Mahuran from Talangkok. Yeah, the question talking about the culture and link to the expectations. Yeah. When I look at when we talk about the culture expectation, yeah, I would say that here, okay, even though you can see that the number of girls is more than men, yeah, than boys in the higher educations, but when they go to the, you know, to work, you see the expectation of girls are different. Okay, I remember when I was, you know, I have 4 siblings. I'm the third. I have one. I have 1 brother and 3 sisters. So you can see that the 3 sisters have to, you know, have to do all those housework. Okay, instead of the boy, my brother. So we quarrel. Yeah. Yeah, we did. But in terms of education, all of us study very hard, and even when we do our revision in the morning after we breakfast, 10 or 10:30, I have to stop. You know why? Because there's a rules in the house. We are girls, right? So we have to assist either the mother or the assistant at the kitchen to prepare for the lunch. You see? So this is the expectation we are talking about, the cultural expectation. So this is, so if you ask me, okay, I see that one of the findings in your studies, it shows is right. You know, this is what happening here. So maybe we should start, you know, share the burden between boys and girls, and it will change, yeah, the cultural part. I stop here. Right?
Let me just add a little bit. So I'm a researcher, so I read a lot of research papers. So there's this study from on women in the labor force that was published in 2022, I think, from University Malaya, and it talked about how women's career path follows a single peak. So you can, when women are active in the labor force from 20 to 29 years old, and then once they reach the peak, they would just decline. They don't enter the labor force after they form a family, they have children. And this has a lot to do with the gender norms in our society that puts women as the giving women the caregiver role. So when you compare the graph with men, they would peak at 25 and then it would just be constant and only go down when they're retired. So that's already like a huge example of how family cultures really significantly shape women's career path and trajectory. Yeah.
Can I add about the one peak and two peaks there? Okay, yeah, just to share, yeah, talking about, as my colleague here said that when the woman take a career break and there is a challenge there when they want to enter to the labor force. Okay, there are many reasons. Yeah, there are many reasons. If I can share, yes, in Malaysia it's only one peak. They go down, down, down. They go down, never go up. But in other country, they go up. There are two peaks there. The reason, there are many reasons. One of the reasons is there's a skill mismatch. You mentioned about that in your studies. What we mean by this skill mismatch, yeah, is, for example, we are a lawyer. I give example as a lawyer, yeah. You take a break, okay, and maybe you can take a break about 5-6 years. You can see that the skills are, in business, yeah, the very grow very fast, and the skills, if you don't update your skills, so the skills is not relevant compared to the one that you are working at the time and the period that, this is one of that. So Talentcorp as an agency under the Ministry of Human Resource, okay, now the short name is KESUMA. KESUMA means bunga kalau kita tengok, yeah. This is actually the ideas of our YB Stephen, yeah. So that's why we try to not look at the women's, then who are living at the labor force, but we should start early. Okay, we should start early. Our CCP career comeback start in 2015, but after eventually we can see the challenges among the girls, among the women there. So that's where we go to the schools and we go to the universities, because we want to educate them to give awareness in terms of the role, the gender things, the gender matters, and the occupations that are in demand, what kind of skills, yeah. So there is school and there is an university, and we want them, if it's normal, girls, when you get a job, you work, and then you start a family at certain age, you take a break. One of example I can give you, I'm the one of the example who took a break. Because I have, just now I said my sibling 4, right? I have 3 children, 1 son, 2 daughters. And during their secondary schools, I don't know, maybe because of the upbringing, right? So 3 of them are very rebellious, okay, the son and the daughters. The son, I cannot, okay, one of the example, if he's not happy, he will just whack my everything at home. And one of my daughter write a diary. You know why did she wrote? Nak lari dari rumah. Because father, mother are so busy. Okay, and I found out through my assistant. And even my mother scolded me, why you are so busy with your career? You should take care of your. Yeah? So this is how, that's where our agencies, I feel it. I feel what the girls feel, okay? So that's where we go after the awareness of the school and the university. And we want them to say that it's okay. It's a noble job. You take care of your family or your elderly parents, it's okay. Once you are ready, you come back. Okay, once you come back, and we will guide you. We will be the bridge, yeah, with the employers, who needs you. Who said that they don't need you? They need you. So now we have to do the matching part there, right? In terms of the skill, in terms of the expectation, yeah. And for those young junior girls, when they are, companies, in the company, they're so busy working, and they need some, I would say, not mentor or, a sister or, to guide them in terms of, how to share about what's problems there in the office and blah, blah. So we have this program, we call it Women in Industry. Women in Network is WIN, we call it WIN. So WIN, okay, here we establish a mentor and we also invite the mentees. This is a free program. When we want to have it, okay, because the program is very short, only 3-4 weeks, because we want to match this mentor and mentees, and mentor come from all various, from the C-suite, from GM level, directors, because they want to give back to the society. They love you guys, the girls. They love men also, okay? But they want to guide, yeah? They want to guide the girls, okay? And the recent wins, cohort 9, recently we just finished our graduation. We call it Girls Who Lead, okay? And you know how many mentees that we have during that time is 160 with 20 mentors. And all these mentees, the category of mentees, come from final year students and a young executive, 2-3 years experience in the company. So you can see that instead of we tackle on the women who are in career break, we want to start from the beginning. Thank you.
That's great, because I think like right here in my notes it's about specifically on the Talent Corp Women's Career Comeback Program, so I'm glad that that's mentioned. I think Adila, maybe from a private sector's perspective, in a lot of ways I feel when it comes to inclusive work environments, private sector has sort of led the way in many respects, because in perhaps some policy framework might not exist. So perhaps from a private sector perspective, what do you think are some of the key barriers and some ways that we can also overcome?
Yeah, so I do think the key barriers remain the same, private sector or public sector, but I think the private sector does have those pressures to perform, right? And so having diversity and enabling your workforce to include that diverse set of skills that add to the final outcome that you're looking for, that is really something that the private sector environment would kind of converge around, because you do want to get the gains from having that diverse set of skills, the viewpoints, the rich experience that women can bring to the workforce. In particular, women who've had a break from their careers to look after their family, who have that depth of life experience to share and contribute back to the workplace. So I think I can perhaps share some of the things that I do see as being steps that can help to in some way address some of these issues, because cultural issues are things that are formed by society, by other things. But if in a workplace we could come up with policies or implement some sort of initiatives that encourage that diversity, then perhaps that can be a way of getting cultures to accept that women having equal inclusive opportunities in the workplace is perfectly fine and does not jeopardize your family unit. So I think I can share maybe two of the things. One of the things I think I did see as a recommendation in the report is transparency and reporting, because exactly to your point, right, when it's data driven, then you can make policies. And if you don't have data, how are you going to make policies? So it's important to track how you're doing in terms of diversity. So Microsoft has its diversity and inclusion report. It reports across many elements of diversity and inclusion, including women. So it's women in the workforce. That breaks down where they are in terms of their position, where they are in terms of the hierarchy, leadership positions, technical roles. We also include remuneration disparities, adjusted and unadjusted, the pay gap, and we report it transparently. So whether or not it's a pretty picture, it's there, and then when it's out there, then you have something to work towards to improve. The other thing that we do is, as Puan Aziza mentioned, and I think similar to a lot of what Talent Corp does, we do recognize that having the right updated skill sets is essential for having those job opportunities in the marketplace. And to the extent that women might face barriers having access to those skilling opportunities, we try to address that gap. So one of the things that we're doing is having a 60% allocation for women in our AI and cybersecurity skilling. We have similar programs like Code Without Barriers. We're part of an organization called, I think, Code for Girls or something like that. I can't remember what it is. But essentially, if we focus on drawing in these sections of our society that might find specific challenges, then we hope that that's something that can address the gap. We also have things like employee resource groups, communities, celebrating qualities and heroes that basically are exemplars of this sort of inclusive nature. So I hope that's some idea of what can be done here.
Okay, since you share from the private sector, that is where one of our initiative in Talent Corp, we call it LAWA. You know what LAWA means is actually to recognize those companies, not only private but public, who advocate the DEI agenda. Yeah? So this is, we do it annually because we want to say thank you to all those companies, yeah, and also governments. This is how we want to push, you know, to become that, oh, it's actual things, you know, everybody take it, yeah, so that we don't have barriers here, yeah, to achieve and all those. And you can see that in statistic, we are in 102, I think, out of 149 under the gender gap, right? So we want to make sure that we are, the numbers will be lower and lower, not high, yeah, lower and lower. Yeah? And even now, the FLPR is 56%, and the Madani government Madani target on 60%. So by 2020. So if you look at the dozen data, you can see that the increase is very small every year, very small. So that's where we need to work together, you know, how to achieve that. And when you mention about the data part, yeah, the data part, that's where 2 days ago, okay, in conjunction of the Women's Day, tomorrow we will celebrate the big day, okay, on in Sunway, right? Okay, we have launched, we call it Wanita My Wira, yeah, meaning that Wanita is my hero lah, yeah. So what is this Wanita My Wira? This is actually a centralized, yeah, of women initiative, okay, in Talent Corp under MOHR. Meaning that, okay, all those, yeah, women, girls, whether you are in university or whether you are in working, you can just register. What is the benefit from that? So you will see all those kind of initiative, the program that I highlight. And what happened to the company? We open also to the company because we want there's a bridge, a sharing part. Yeah? And for the policy part, why I need this data? This data will give the ground number, you know. So, oh, we have this category, you know, from which state and the age, you know, whether they study and how we want to close the gap of the mismatch. See that?
Sorry, Rashad, if I could just add one more thing, which I've been in the public sector before as well, and so one, I would say, quite interesting thing that I have experienced in the private sector is training. Like the same way that, let's say you join a company, you'll do your basic security training, data protection training, that kind of thing. We actually also have training to recognize bias. And that's part of your basic training as an employee that belongs in a culture that embraces diversity and inclusion. So once we start setting baselines that you're your societal bias is something that you should be aware of as part of your company policy, then that can go towards including this sort of like inclusion, value of inclusion, and recognizing the value of family as in a policy level. So I hope that can be some interesting learning here.
Thank you. I think I'll just pivot a little bit. We've kind of been talking around the care economy in Malaysia, and with the caveat that it isn't necessarily the focus of the research, but it's inevitable that it would be part of the discussion. So maybe I'll just point this towards Sakina first and then just kind of see where it goes from there. If we're talking about what we reckon is the vision for the future of the care economy in Malaysia, and I think in particular, how can we make it more affordable to lower income and middle income segments?
Yeah, thanks, Rashad, for the question specific to me. Yeah, so that's on the vision of care in Malaysia. I think let me just focus on childcare for now, and let's look at the context of childcare in Malaysia. Currently, I believe that childcare in Malaysia is quite imbalanced. We have, first of all, women who belong in the T20 income bracket who could afford private childcare. And then on the other hand, we do have subsidies from the government. For example, the 180 ringgit fee subsidies under the Federal Welfare Department for B40 women. And this leaves out a lot of M40 women. Where do they get help, especially in this economy? So the state of childcare currently in Malaysia is quite fragmented, and it's also kind of like imbalanced in terms of like in terms of the provision. Currently, a lot of childcare is like it's the initiative of the state, it's the initiative of the company. There's no united kind of policy for childcare. So I mean, there are, for example, policies from Selangor, like, for example, there's Mama Kerja for M40 women, Astro Pintar scheme, childcare subsidies for M40 women, but we need this childcare policies to be united across Malaysia. So written in the report as well is we courageously recommended that childcare become a public good, similar to providing public schools. So what the government could do in the future is to put like nurseries and daycares under the Education Act 1966 to make it as part of a public good for everyone, so everyone can have quality, accessibility, and affordable childcare. So yeah, that's, I think, is the vision of childcare in Malaysia.
Nice. Anybody want to just add on? Or?
Okay. When we're talking about the care economy, okay, actually this week I'm very busy because of this International Women's Day. This morning I was at the ASB with the United Nations Forum. Talking about the care economy, I will go broader, not only a childcare, and even the YB Minister of Ministry of Women's mentioned about the ministry are coming up with a roadmap and also a guideline. Okay, so two parts that I want to share is this, childcare and also elderly care. Why? You know that Malaysia is going to an aging nations and care industry is booming. Okay, at the ground, what I can share with you. Okay, all these hospital, public and private. Okay, normally, okay, I go to public first. Okay, those public hospital when they have patient. Okay. Orang tua yang ni dah dapat all those rawatan, when it's ready to discharge, the family members, not only the anak, will ask the doctor, can we stay there longer? Because nobody can take care of my parents, my uncle at home, and they can pay, they said. Okay, private, the patient have money. They can do it. So we don't want to put aside. But even now, even private also have that kind of request. So that's the reason why all these hospital are going to all this third party, you know, who are, they say that this is a need. We need your help to put that. Okay, that is one. So why they go to talent corp? Because they said that talent corp, you have this woman career to take a break, right? We need people. Why don't we rebrand this sector? Because people will say that this elderly care, they thought that, oh, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I cannot work with you, you know? So the rebranding name is, no, you are accountant. We need the account system there, accounting system there. No, you are IT software developer. No, we need an IT guy to come up with all the system. Check in. You see, this is one I share about the care part there. Yeah. So it's very important, and I hope that we also have to help the government to come up with. Budget is coming, even though it's long way. Now it's only March, right? Okay, so September. I hope that one of you, when you listen to this, you come up with a proposal, send to MOF, and put it there. Yeah, it's very important there. I appreciate that. Yeah, so that let you guys, let they mendengar daripada rakyat, not us, not from talent corp. Yeah, it's from you guys. Yeah. Okay, in terms of the childcare. Yeah. I want to share two parts. One, even though there is, I can say an act under Ministry of Wanita, this act is actually to a tax incentive to the private company who set up the childcare. But not many private companies not aware of that. So meaning that they have to do more promotions. And that's where, when we know about it, we meet the middle. We want to inform that childcare is very important to attract, to nurture, to retain your talent, regardless of whether you're a woman or male. Okay, I can share with you just now in the morning session. I have to say it, the company is a Gamuda, okay, and they have this childcare center. When they check on the statistic, the number of children actually come from the male employer, not the female employee. What so? You see? Right? So you can see that it's not only female needs that. Everyone needs that. Okay, so talking about that, so we need to wawarkan, I would say that, promote this. Yeah, we do that, and even I and my teams also always ask, help the private company. If yes, it's very expensive to set up in one center, maybe you can go to region. For example, in Penang, there is a industrial area there, right? So maybe we can put one there, one-stop center. Second, yes, I would say that I can't remember which budget year. Via Laksana, we have the allocation, the grant to help the private to set up. Yeah, but it stopped only 1 year. Okay, we cannot. And when they announce it, okay, I tell you, we receive about, I would say, more than 40 inquiries, and also companies that are interested to be part of that. You see, it's a need, right? It's a need. Right? And this is where we want to help the society there. But of course, it stopped. And I'm not sure whether we want to highlight that in the coming budget. But at the moment, we work with the Ministry of Women to promote the act that I mentioned, because the tax incentive is actually, if I have looked into that very detail, okay, it's because it shows that the tax incentive is for 5 years. For example, you invest about 1 million, right? So per year, how much percent that you can get. So eventually, the money will be, you will get your money. That is my keyword. Okay, that's what I share about my economy. Thank you.
So I actually just wanted to commend that recommendation. So recommendations like that will require a lot of analysis, though, about where would you fund such a thing, who would bear the cost of that. So I'm just suggesting perhaps another level of analysis that could be done is that when you do take the childcare burden off a significant portion of your productive talent, your human resources, how much benefits could be unlocked to the economy, for example. That could be something that can help sort of support that sort of recommendation. And yeah, I completely support this, tax incentives and other efforts to recognize the value that that we give to childcare, family care support, elderly especially. And for example, if there isn't enough support to families, then we might have an even more rapidly aging society with an even larger burden for elderly healthcare. So these are great policy recommendations to talk about and have deep analysis on.
Thank you. So I'm probably just going to ask a couple more questions, throw it out there into the ether, and then just open up for the floor to ask. Just pivoting a bit more, looking at STEM graduates, right? So trying to address this trend of horizontal gender segregation. 2021, women constitute 53.8% of STEM graduates in Malaysia. Employment continues to remain low, right? So it's a persistent issue across the years. I don't know whether there's anything in particular that maybe Adila, if there's any thoughts here. I think earlier you mentioned you were talking about upskilling, so whether this is particularly relevant for this.
Well, I actually really appreciated that statistic, and part of me would like to also think aloud, or maybe even ask Sakina, how much of that was due to the gender horizontal, I forgot what you call it, I'm so sorry.
Segregation.
Segregation. And how much of it could be maybe the amount of jobs available for STEM might not be there, or the desirability of the non-STEM jobs might be higher due to pay. There could be various factors, because personally I feel like moving forward there may not necessarily be a one-to-one match between the degree you read and the job that you land. I think in the future the skill set that you build in university would be more sort of soft skills, and then the job that you eventually land would be something more that what the economy is looking for, or what your personal interest might be in. So that's one observation that I think could have some interesting insights from there. Apart from that, I did also notice that computer science and engineering was taken out from the STEM.
It was in the graph, but it was just for statistical representation. We think that we should exclude it. But also, if you compare the data from DOSM, they also did the same thing, yeah, to separate all STEM fields.
And the mismatch is mostly in the STEM from which the computer science and engineering has been removed. Is that right? Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. So that's quite interesting to see, and it could potentially be maybe other reasons as well. So I am actually quite interested in that. So I am not really able to speak to that, but to the extent that the skilling that we see and the skill set that we see as being highly valuable in the future, those I think might fall under computer science at this time, so I'm not really able to speak to that. But yeah, to the extent that Microsoft does believe in future-looking skills, as I mentioned, we recently launched this AI skills initiative, which we are focusing on women as well, and the entire workforce and sort of future workforce as well. So that's something that we hope can close the gap regardless of gender, close the gap and earnings gap. So yeah, I hope that's something we can continue to work on.
Definitely in the future.
I thought you brought up an interesting point in terms of like sort of the changing nature of perhaps education and work, in terms of the things that you study. It's not necessarily going to translate directly in the future. So this is actually one of the questions further down. We're talking about persistent job mismatch, right? So your suggestion, I think it implies that perhaps this might not be such a problem in the future, or perhaps the problem would look a little bit different as far as skills mismatch is concerned. And then I guess one question to throw into the air is, when you throw the gender element into that, right? How does that sort of warp it totally? I don't know. It's just a thought at the top of my head.
I'll throw something in quickly, because I think Talent Corp team probably has done a lot of work on this. What I would say is that in the future, what you read in university will be increasingly just something that formed your baseline of knowledge. You need to keep on upskilling with relevant skill sets to survive in the nature of how the workplace works. There will be a baseline set of knowledge, but information becomes more accessible, more readily available to everyone. So it will become about how do you access it, how do you analyze it, how do you synthesize it, how do you form insights from it. And those are skills that are not based on what degree you did. They're skills that you need to keep on upgrading. And so I think that's a different set of issues. When you layer the gender element on top of that, I actually think it's a great opportunity, because I think women are great learners. not to have any bias in that, men are great learners too. But with availability of the skilling opportunities, I'm hoping that this can be a way that the gap is actually bridged.
Okay, I'm just going to look for one nice question here before I guess I open it up to anybody who wants to ask anything. Here's one. Yes, so I think something that we touched on in the report was a lot of the perhaps discriminatory factors that take place in the process of employment. A lot of these things legally are, you know, there's laws against that, but it continues to be loopholes that are exploited. So perhaps across the board, and this is to everybody, how can we sort of address and rectify such discriminatory practices? So for example, the one that one of the things that when we discuss the report in the office, something that I like to talk about at length is paternal leave. So in my own experience, when my child was born, I got 2 days of paternal leave, 2 days. Which, of course, I was unhappy about, but you can imagine how my wife felt about the whole thing. So because we had advance notice of a pregnancy, as one does, I compiled all of my leave to add 30 days to those 2 days of this pitiful 2 days of paternal leave that I got. From my perspective, as a first-time father, it was a bit awkward, I guess, because here you are trying to be present for your child, not knowing what you're supposed to be doing, and then on the other hand, you have your wife who is, you know, unhappy about the fact that in about a couple of weeks' time, you got to go back to work. So one of the things that we were advocating for was an increase in paternal leave. And in some cases, you have, you know, I think in some Scandinavian countries, please correct me if I'm wrong, because this is kind of off the top of my head. You have a case of paternal leave is granted to a married couple, but I think it's the wife who ends up taking the paternal leave. Remember we talked about this in the office one time? And then the whole point is that, okay, I have the leave, but I pass it over to my wife. You know, there's a huge problem there, exactly. So in the sense that I think what I'm quite interested in particular is this socializing aspect of it, right? Like it is important for perhaps a man's paternal leave to be in a way like, where am I going with this? I recognize the rambling effect now. It's like you want to be able to socialize behavior where the man takes his paternal leave to care for his child as much as a woman cares for their child, as opposed to like, here, take my leave, I'm going to go back to my traditional gender role and continue to be the primary breadwinner, and it's your responsibility to care for the child. So with that kind of like very lengthy comment, I would like to kind of invite any additional thoughts on this.
First statement, you are lucky you have 7 days paternity.
It was 2. It was 2.
Oh, it's 2. Okay, oh, 2. Okay, all right. During my time, 0 for my husband. Right? No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Yes. Okay. Even this morning also we discussed about this paternity. Compare if we look into Malaysia and compare with other countries. Yes, there are other countries who give more paternity. But there's at least we start with something, right? Okay. And if you ask me, I would say this is not just me. I would say that we will not stop to. Okay. Eventually, I believe, the government will look into that. Of course, subject to. Say there's a lot of factors there, right? And when they want to come up with what we call a decision, there's a lot of factors they need to see. Not only at one angle, oh, we have to increase this paternity days. No, we don't that. Yeah. So if you ask me. We should look at other angle like the support systems, you know, the childcare, you know, the flexible work arrangement, okay, and sometimes Okay, the flexible work arrangement is also another initiative from us. Okay, because we want to help the companies to practice this. Okay, and you don't need a paternity leave. You can work from home while taking care of the kids, while they are while the mother is in the confinement. So have to look at other angles also. No, don't focus on this paternity. Yeah. Okay.
In my ideal world, in my ideal world, companies that look to attract talent, their competitive edge will include having an environment that enables that talent to progress their career and contribute as much as they can to the company, and at the same time maintain the family life that they would like to have, right? And that then becomes an aspect of creating value for your company, embedded into the very nature of how that company runs without having to legislate. But the reality is very likely that there might need to be some somewhat stronger interventions than just market forces competing for the best talent. But when we go back to recognizing that family unit is the basic unit of society, that is the basis on which our economy runs, hopefully that kind of value can be embedded in how we operate.
Yeah, just to add in terms of the work-life balance, when you look at the data of the DOSM labor force, we have about 15 million, the working workers, and I can say that 65% is actually come from millennials. So their mindsets are different. Yes, money is important, money, but the work-life balance also is very important. So that is where the company also have to have a policy to attract this talent. Okay, so that's where, okay, from the government perspective, we come up with this childcare, we come up with this flexible work arrangement, we come up with all those, how to make the balance between the economy and also the talents. Okay, so managing the millenniums we are talking about here, and I believe, maybe you also encounter this, when they are not happy, okay, they will just decide, okay, I will look for another.
We're in Gen Z now, actually. Yeah, I think we've gone to Gen Z, yeah.
Well, I'm the millennial representative. Work-life balance is very important to me, yes. He said at 3:30 in the afternoon on Thursday.
Do you need a gym at the office? Yeah, you see?
Well, I have to speak to help me about that, I think.
Okay. And then they need technology, gadget, right? Yeah, the expectations.
Yeah, I wanted to add on the idea of family-friendly, flexible work, and also this a report by McKinsey company, and said that it's not true that only women want flexible work. Actually, men also want flexible work. That's something that's quite new to us nowadays. I think it's true if you, Rashad.
I concur.
But also there are a lot of benefits to have flexible work arrangement for a company. One of it is stated by Ms. Adila just now, but in that report as well, it says that women are more ambitious when they have flexible working arrangement. I think that was quite interesting, that we could empower women if we implement more flexible working arrangement. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add what you shared, because we had our COVID in 2020, 2021, right? Okay, and we work together with UNDP because actually pandemic accelerate the flexible work arrangement. Okay, because can you imagine during the, I believe you remember that at one point when the government said that all must work from home. Okay, big companies, MNC companies, they are not worried because they have the policy in place. They have the technology. But I'm talking about the SME here. You can see that how much contributions, GDP that SME contribute to the country is a lot. So this is where the governments have to introduce this FWA part, to help that. Yeah. So to implement the FWA, okay, there are 3 points there that we have to look at. The first, to make sure that it's successful lah. Yeah. The first is people. I'm talking about the leadership and the people and the trust. Okay. If the top number one doesn't believe that, it's very difficult to do that. Second is technology. Technology. For example, you are payroll officer. You don't have a good system in software. How you want to do to process the staff punya salary at home? No, you have to come back to office because it's at the server, blah, blah, blah. I don't know all these technology terms, but that is by those days. But it's not now, right? You have that, I don't know what kind of terms. Oh, you can do the work there, right? Third one is the process. I'm talking about the business process. Okay, so this is where my teams share, the 3 things that you should do. You want to make sure the flexible work arrangement is successful in the office. And talking about the UNDP report that we wrote together, it shows that if the company practice this FWA or hybrid, they can see the productivity of the whole better compared to that. I can share you can also upload the report in our websites there on the UNDP.
All right, thanks everyone. We have about half an hour or so for questions from the floor. I think there are some microphones floating about. Thank you, Kenneth. I've got one there and then, okay. Oh. Hang on, so we have one question at the back here and then we'll go to the lady in front if that's okay. Or you wanna? Okay.
Hello. Hi, I'm Sherry, and I've been involved in gender rights and women's empowerment work for a long while now, so this kind of research really gets my mind racing. Thank you very much for this very important work. I just have a few questions, stroke comments, and lastly something to maybe challenge the panel a little bit. Firstly, I think, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the information, or at least a lot of data here, has been based on the formal workforce. And I think we need to start recognizing the importance of the informal workforce, because I think the majority are women in the informal workforce. We also need to start recognizing that the informal workforce is not well protected. You leave a lot of women very vulnerable because of that. So I think that's one issue. Secondly, I think but this is based on some research I did last year, but in the area of STEM, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, the specific area was engineering, that Malaysia is actually more advanced in terms of gender penetration, women's penetration into STEM compared to the West, compared to America and even Europe. So I think they're talking particularly in the area of engineering, and I think maybe that's an area where we need to look into deeper. Why is Malaysia, in a sense, more successful in that area of career development, and the way it's been, represented by both genders? It's very interesting. Obviously, women are not on par as men, but the fact that we are higher than the States, I think that's a big statement. And thirdly, I think, going back to the unpaid care work, the discussion of the panel has been, I think, heard before. Childcare, paternal leave, everything obviously will contribute. But I think I would like to, maybe be a bit of a devil's advocate, or maybe not a devil's advocate, but just offer an alternative view. The issue is that unpaid care work is not seen as work, and so it is not given any value, any economic value, and I think that's an issue, because at the end of the day, women do enjoy being at home. They do see value in it. And the problem is that as an economy, we don't see the value. We don't remunerate that as valuable work. And it has, such significant impact. Women are having less children. I think we've gone down about 50% in terms of having children. That's contributed to our aging society. There will come a time when there'll be no children to take care of us, our generation. And so many other issues. I think, if you have well-educated mothers, your children become more advanced in terms of their, I think, intellectual capacity as well. So I think that's the issue in terms of how we consider policy going forward that recognizes value to unpaid care work. And I think EPF have started with SERI, but obviously it's a very small amount, and I don't know whether the panel has any views, but I think that's a very important structural barrier that we need to resolve to go forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, if I may, just very quickly on the subject of a few of those comments. Regarding informal and formal demarcations, I think one thing we were conscious of when we first started this study, the starting point was female graduates. So I think when we were talking about this in its initial stages, we were conscious of the fact that this is only going to account for this particular thing, right? So informal work is going to be outside of the scope of our particular research. Not to say that that is any less or more important, but that was already something that by virtue of the decision, we decided that this wasn't something we're going to focus on. But without question, I think that there is a lot that we do need to do in that particular space. And in fact, we hope to do post this point. I think one of the things that we will, one of the objectives of this report was for us to use this as a starting point, not just in terms of further research and further study, but more importantly for programs and policy action that we can take beyond this point. Some of the things that I think you earlier mentioned, some of the things that we've discussed here, granted are not necessarily new, it's ground that we are treading upon again, but what we hope is the perspective that we provide will give us an opportunity to be able to act on some of those things, as opposed to, in like a year's time, rehash this all over again, or a couple of years' time. I don't know whether anybody else wants to about value of care work. Or
Just a quick point on the informal workforce. Yeah, I love that point, and just anecdotal. Again, would be great to do further studies on that. One of the things that we did is we ran a rural entrepreneur skilling program, and that sort of like cast a wide net, and then gradually identified the kind of the most diligent and those that are most likely to get the biggest gains from, focusing digital upskilling. And they were all female entrepreneurs that had their own families. And part of the reason that they liked this entrepreneurial lifestyle is it was flexible, and they were able to basically, be the breadwinner. Actually, nearly all of them were the primary breadwinner. So that's actually a very interesting area to study, that I would say that they could probably be having greater economic productivity than some of the people in the workforce. So, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just thinking out loud. Firstly, I would thank the panelists. I think some of you shared some personal experiences, so thank you for that. And that was a very good question about unpaid care. This is tongue-in-cheek, but for the ladies in the room, for those of us who decide not to go to work because we have to take care of children, please ask your husbands to give you half their pay. Yeah. So on a serious note, since we're talking about policy at the policy level, I think there's a lot that at the policy level as a country we can do, right? When we talk about paternity, I think you had said, you get 2 days. In my days, my husband got 0, and I think Tan Srino also said he got 0. So we have evolved, but 2 is clearly not enough. Do we go to the Scandinavian example? I think it's 3 months or 6 months, something like that. It's a question of what nations can afford, right? So I think there's a lot that we can do at policy, but at the end of the day, we also have to look in the context of society. And I think today we talked a lot about family, culture, and I think in the context of Malaysia, whether you're Malay, Indian, Chinese, dan lain-lain, truth be told, family and culture cuts across all countries, truth be told, right? I mean, even when I talk to my Mat Saleh friends, they face the same issue in reality. It is not that difference. But maybe because their nations are richer, women can get 6 months maternity paid leave. I mean, in Malaysia, can you imagine if we ever evolve to that, right? But hopefully one day, as the nation gets richer, as the cake gets bigger, they say, is it? Then we can all get there. But I think to the extent that SERI and Microsoft today is hosting this lovely event, I think we have to look at policies, but this is where I think industry have to come to play. I think Madam Hajah Mahuran had said, there was a grant before for corporations to set up childcare. But like you said, very few corporates took that up because they didn't see the economic value. I mean, at that time, I was a leader in a large corporate. In the end, we did something, but it was small compared to what the true intention is. So I think to the policy makers in the room, or for those of us who can influence that, I think it's important, I mean, to get the policies right, but at the end of the day, I think industries have to play. But to the extent that we're celebrating Women's Day tomorrow, my message to my fellow women who wants to break the barrier, we also, the expression, we have to lean forward. We can't be shy. I mean, I remember when we talk about inequality in pay, I actually realized I was paid less than my fellow colleague who started at the same time. And I walked straight to my boss. I said, why is it I'm paid less than him? And my boss says, how do you know? I says, I said, oh, we all know these things. And of course, my boss has a male at that time. This story is old, I'm old. This story is 40 years old. And then he says, oh, I didn't know it bothered you. What? So I said, of course it did. But gender difference, right? Ni zaman dulu lah, right? My boss was a lovely old man. I worked in Citibank a long time ago. And then guess what? Don't ask, don't get. The next day, I got the same pay. So lean forward, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a question
I
at the
had
back.
the same experience with you. My boss said, oh, I don't want to give you, we have this PMS, excellent, good, blah, 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 right? Okay, and they say, oh no, you married to a very rich man, so I want to give to another man who, he's the only soul breadwinner. What? I said, so from that day, I don't want to work extra. Okay, you ask your other colleague, no, just sharing here. Okay, so before you go for another question, I want to touch about two things there. You mentioned about the unpaid, the unpaid care works. Yes, we start with the SERI. It's very small. At the moment, Talent Corp also actually conducting a survey, not a survey, a study with WAO, okay, to look into healthcare sector. We start with the healthcare sector because healthcare sector is very big. Not cover the doctor, the nurses, all those who work at the healthcare. So we will share that report and maybe. Because our goal is after that study, we will finish by third quarter this year, and we want to table it to the cabinet through, of course, Kementerian Kesihatan for that. Yeah, for the informal sector that you mentioned, that there are more females there, and we must have a structured we don't have a structured, I would say, a policy ataupun a guideline on the informal things. And it's actually related also to the gig. Yeah, when people talk about gig, people always relate to all those grabs lah and other things. No, you can see that it's actually at low end, but there is a gig at the professional level. I'm talking about the company, for example, education sector. Okay, also has started that. They don't hire a full-time lecturer. Okay. Right, I can see a few kepala anggo agree with that. So why? Because they want to manage the money, the cost, operation. So that's where all these people, the rakyat, are screaming to the government, you have to come up with the comprehensive guideline on this kind of information. So I heard that recently they announced they set up a commission to look into that sector. Okay, and tadi I bagi you example on the education. The locum of the doctor also. This is all gig part. It's a high skill, not only the low skill there. We need that. We need a comprehensive policy for that. Thank you.
Question at the back there.
Hi, good afternoon. This has been a very interesting afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Helmi, for inviting me here. I also have a sneaky suspicion that he knew that I would get up and make a few comments. My name is Pramita. I'm actually an obstetrician and gynecologist. I'm in the healthcare industry. Thank you very much for talking about women and pregnancy. We talked about breastfeeding. We touched a little bit about menstrual cramps and how women, how workforce should recognize that. But my forte at this moment, or rather my passion at this moment, is talking about women going through menopause in the workforce. Now, this is something that is coming up around the world. Women are growing old, or rather old, I hate the word old, but getting on in their years at their own place of work. And a lot of women are going through menopausal changes, and a lot of them are not able to cope with it at work. And I think that this too has to come in when we talk about inclusivity and keeping women in the workforce. Now, the UK figures are actually showing that 1 in 10 women
made a good point earlier about how there's not even enough leave for male parents, right? So I'm also a millennial, and I hear this from my friends as well, the men who want to play a more active role as a family unit, but there's that discrimination in the workplace, right? They don't have the means to do so. So we're talking a lot about empowering women in the workplace, but why are we not talking about empowering men at home and empowering men to empower women, right? So for a survey like this, I think it's really good. I've been looking for this kind of data for the Malaysian market, but also the insights of men, that the role that they play, right? What do they expect as a new father, as a husband? That would be also quite insightful to have. So then we don't completely neglect 50% of the population in terms of how we can address this. So not just asking women to take up space, but asking men to help make that space as well. So what are your thoughts on that?
Is this like automatically directed at me, or? Okay, thanks. Thank you for your question. I think initially when we were putting this together, Sakina, again, please correct me if I'm wrong. There's a very clear distinction between who has a more organized brain between the two of us. I think one of the things we talked about was not wanting to make recommendations that are just for women, right? So it's like this becomes like a women's problem. Like, oh, you got to do this, or you got to do that, you got to do that. But I think the way that we, for the purposes of the report, if I can be a bit academic about it, I guess it didn't necessarily work out that way in terms of how we ended up structuring it. I think, but as a consequence of that, what became very interesting was two things. One is men's cultural attitudes, as well as this own sort of transition from graduation to employment, right? So that we can establish another baseline from the male perspective. Then you can compare the two, right? Both from an educational journey perspective, as well from a cultural expectation perspective. Because, and I am very wary of the words that are about to come out of my mouth, I think the expectations of men in general are, forget about unheard of, more like unthought of. I think for most men, these are things that don't even necessarily occur. You kind of just accept whatever has been socialized by generations that have come before, or society, to sort of just enter into your own gender roles and norms without even thinking about it. And then when somebody points it out to you, it's kind of flabbergasting, because like, no, I'm not a sexist, you know, I don't employ this sort of behavior. And then you step and realize, oh no, this is norms that I haven't even realized I have taken on, right? Again, very clearly speaking from my perspective. So I forgot I was going with this point. Let's assume that I had a nice conclusion to this point, and then I will pass it back to the floor. Thank you very much. Do you want to question it? Okay.
I want to ask a question as I think I'm only a few of the men that is in this room. Okay, my name is TJ. I am a business owner running a company called Silver Lake, so partner to Microsoft too. The good thing is I just told Dr. Helmi on the WhatsApp as I'm not an outlier in terms of running the company, because personally I'm quite fair to my women staff. In fact, I try to encourage them to be more productive than ever. Paternity, maternity leave, as a boss, no much difference to me, but I do encourage my staff to take a bit more time to spend with their family. I believe in time spending with family creates intellectual value in terms that creates a lot of value. As such, there were certain policies that me as a leader of the company that I set, and I liked my staff to follow through to get the benefit. Now the question will come to this, which I think relevant to the panel will be, now there are business owners, I'm sure like me, had certain ideas that they wanted to execute, but they execute on their own capacity as maybe a leader of a business or whatsoever, head of units whatsoever. How do such leaders provide these ideas to a panel that has the power to influence policies and so on? We have no channels of such. Today, we're sitting here, hearing a few words, a lot of mind-racing ideas. And then the question is, how do I put this idea out? Example, you would like to encourage women in employment, whether it's private sector or whatsoever sector. We think tax break may be a way to do this. But we're not going to write to the Prime Minister to say that, would you want to have a tax break for women to be in this? We don't know where the letter goes, and we're quite sure the thing will not reach if the attention is not being given. In the similar terms to earlier on, I think whether it's paternity leave or maternity leave, was a statement about cost of business that comes to it. My business is quite decent, so I didn't look at the cost per se. In that sense, I do feel that most of the business who may struggle to keep themselves afloat, they cannot lose the productivity. So a tax break, again, another word for it, may help those situations. But a lot of these ideas may not be having the platform to be shared across. Besides SERI today, what other platform do you think we could go on to share some of these ideas so that, you know, it could grow the economy, grow the cake? Thank you.
Okay, I think that's okay. Thank you for the feedback. Yeah. So remember I mentioned about we launched the Wanita My Wira. Okay, this is where a centralized, I would say a system where we want all those feedback from the talent and also from the company. So you mentioned that I can see that you have a lot of ideas. You want to reach out to the government. Okay, that's where the platform is. Okay, right. Remember to register, and then we can have discussion from there. Thank you.
So I wanted to just share that there are actually platforms for input. Budget is actually one of the ones that is open for public input. But of course, you're right, as a single voice, not that powerful. So what Microsoft, and I'm sure you know this, we like to partner. So we partner with like-minded partners, and it's private sector partners, civil society, academia, and government as well. So I would say find the right partner, work together to advocate for the change. We'll be happy to partner you. So.
I think we've got one question waiting at the back there, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm from IDS. Actually, I'm taking my internship in there while I'm studying a degree in UM. I'm from Indonesia, and I just want to ask about your opinion or your comments. We all agree that women participation is very low in the workforce, and disabled person participation in the workforce also very, very low. Imagine combining both variables, how low their participation will be. It actually, if we want to talk about a woman participation in general, we don't just consider about the ethnicity variables, education background and else. We also have to consider about disabled person, because from my experience, it's very less the discussion about disabled person, especially in women in general. So I just want to ask your comments about this issue, and how can we promote this issue and increase the participation in the workforce? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think that's a very valid point, that disabled women are often not included in the discourse of female participation in the workforce, and I believe that in the future that we should target these groups of individuals and look at how the intersection between gender and also disability affects women's how they experience in the labor force. Yeah.
Okay, my take. Okay, I have to say the names of this YB senator because he was with me in the morning sessions. He doesn't use the word person with disability. It's supposed to be person with ability. Okay, so meaning that, yes, I agree with you how we want to help this person with ability to be part of that. There are two areas. Yeah, there is also a research that we do, okay, with public university, UPM, talking about to enhance the guideline of hiring this PWD to the workforce, male and female. Okay, and even the government's policy, okay, there is 1%, yeah, there is a 1% to hire in the government servant, public, right? Point, I can see that, but I think point from the government, right? So they're achieving that, I say, right, through that system. Not yet. Okay, yeah. So there is a not KPI. There's a goal. So we are going to that. Yes, agree. We include all those, and we are doing things, to improve that area, okay, of PWD for not only women but also male. Thank you.
30 seconds. So the only thing I would add is that that's actually one of the things that from Microsoft, we try to see how technology can actually help people be more included in society, in the economy, and with the ability for remote working, and with our sort of like ensuring accessibility in technology itself. So speech to text, text to sound, accessibility guides in how you lay out your Word document, your PowerPoint document, those are all embedded already in the things that we offer. So we're really hoping that we can make this a norm, like immediately, the minute you do something, it has to be accessible. So then you immediately include people. So, I mean, this is definitely something that we hope can contribute towards this. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm conscious that it's already 4 o'clock. Perhaps if we want, we can take one more question, and then I will wrap everything. This one over there, and that will be it.
Hi, my name is Liana from Global Research Network. My question is for Madam Haja. Do you think the sciences in Malaysia has a branding problem? And what I mean by this is because if you look from engineering, why is it that it's pretty fair for women to get a job? It's because the partnerships between academia, private, and partners are really strong. When recruiters want to know where do I go to hire, you immediately go to UTM and others below, but you do. They know exactly where to go. Also, the skill sets that engineers bring cross-cut across several industries. You can work for Microsoft, you can work for Petronas, you can work for telco, anywhere. But sciences is very niche, right? So you find that they're very unable to utilize their 5 years of dedication of scientific work, which is extremely important, but it doesn't translate immediately to the industry. It's limited to maybe academia and offset as just a co-pilot project that does not take off. And if you read the Dasar Science Innovation Technology 2021-2030, the government specifically acknowledges that there's a problem with funding. Scientific institutions can no longer depend on government funding, and they need to find alternative sources. So from the engineering side, they've played their cards right. UTM has scored a massive new grant to build an AI institution, so you can only expect more graduate pools to come from there. But from the scientists, who's looking out for all those wasted talent? Because there's only so much labs that can be built in Malaysia, and what areas need to be targeted. So is it really a gender imbalance, or perhaps it's a branding problem for the sciences? Thank you.
This is a very tough question when you're talking about, okay, the science and also STEMs, and you mentioned about, there is a Dasar Science Negara. I come through that document also, and now we also have the STEM, so I'm not sure whether, I think I'm not the best person to answer that in terms of the branding of science. I believe maybe there are, I would say separate things that we need. Maybe I can take offline, maybe we can discuss further on that. So there's a that is, to save, to answer that. Yeah?
Sure,
Thank you.
What I could add is that, you're absolutely right. Maybe it's a pipeline issue. Maybe there isn't actually demand for graduates of pure sciences. I have no idea, but I'm just agreeing that this needs further analysis.
Okay, with that, I think we have come to the end of today's program. So I'd just like to thank, first of all, the panelists for their participation here. And thank you, Microsoft, for hosting us at your lovely office. I'm a big fan of the batik roof in the cafeteria. That's very nice. And obviously, thank you to all of you for giving up your Thursday afternoon to come by and show your support to our report Now to Work. Thank you very, very much, and have a lovely evening. Thank you.